Greetings! Welcome to the Devlog for hot dogs, horseshoes, and hand grenades. We're going to start off as always with a quick sound check. Make sure speakers aren't up too high. Wonderful. So what have we got for you this week? Well, the colossal build out of what is turning into a colossal level continues, and I have some new spaces in it to show you folks. I've made some fairly significant changes to my plans for this level since the last time I did a devlog, mainly in determining the range of sub-environments and hallway types and room types that are present in it, as a number of experiments I've done have gone successfully. So we're going to jump right into the first of them. This is, everything you're seeing here is still in progress. This is a sort of hallway. This is going to be called the Inclinator, which is our primary artery for the western quadrant of the level. We can see we have some testing SOSIGs here for scale, and if I come down on one of these ladders to help deblock it and come out to the edge, you can see that that is quite a long ways. It's so interesting being in a large diagonal room because part of your brain is telling you, like, I'm really high up, and part of your brain is telling you, I am in a huge room. And they're both right. Both parts of your brain are correct with that. And so the idea with this room, just as a sort of fun conceptual thing, is that this room is where a whole bunch of the blocks that some of the stranger parts of this level are constructed out of are being transited to. And so, much like the worst rail line imaginable, these two diagonal chutes are going to have some very, very fast-moving things going by. And so there will be some more service handholds, so you can rough cross along like this if you want, especially if you need to use this part as cover. But this metal chute is going to host some very, very, very fast-moving rhombohedrons that will paste you or SOSIGs that find themselves, unfortunately, in that area. And each one of these has a walkway. This is how we sort of come across from one level to the other. I'm still editing and modifying the geometry of a lot of these. I just only got this working baked lighting wise last night, so I'm still tweaking some things about the topology of it. I'm probably going to do like a little cut inset there into the pieces because right now we can sort of get from here to here, but right now I don't think, can I pop up? Yeah, this is just a little too short. If I jumped, I could get up onto here, but I'd like it so that there's some sort of handhold here, or if this was cut to be a little bit lower. So, that is going to be, and there's going to be a super loud whooshing sound as the things that will paste you are shooting down this, which I think will help make this room feel appropriately large and terrifying. So yeah, so let's go ahead and come on down here. Oh, I love one of the things that I've been trying to do with some of these large hallways is to have some implicit sort of keys to let you know where certain things are. So in the case of these, you can tell where there is a sideways doorway to another area because there is a set of yellow lights on the incline there. On sections where there is no yellow lights, there is no doorway on either side. You know, come to think of it, as I just say that, it would actually probably be smart to remove one of the two lights on the side, so at a distance you can be like, there's a door on the left there, and so there's a pair of lights. So I may do that. And from here, we can connect down into what is currently the largest hold room, still in progress, that is based upon, any of you who've played Mirror's Edge will be familiar with this space, but this is based on, there is an underground spillway in Tokyo to help with flooding and such. And that just has these absolutely massive columns, and I have been obsessed with this real life edifice since discovering it after playing Mirror's Edge. Let's drop down a ladder here. Oh, tingles in my stomach. And so this is going to be a huge hold space. I'm doing this sort of iteratively as I add different rooms and different hallways. Like right now, this room only has a single entrance cut into it up there, and then one there, and nothing on this side, because this isn't a kit-based room, and it's large enough that I sort of have to make this room respond to the rest of the level as I assemble it in terms of where all of its cut points are. So you can see I actually managed to get a little bit of running water here. It doesn't have the impact effects yet when I shoot it, but I need to define a new P material for that. The hold won't actually be this entire space. It will be cut off, so there'll be a little bit smaller area of concern. But as you can see here, there's a fair bit of static cover because of the way that you can work these columns against threats, and you can still see, roughly speaking, clearly enough to the ends here that encryption shouldn't be difficult to find, to hit, running back and forth, despite this taking place in a large environment. And as I said, I'm going to cut in, there's one there, and I'll end up probably cutting in at least 3, probably 4 more entrances in total based upon where I end up having the tunnels come in, as well as placing some more static cover. Obviously, this is a spillway that is not currently in use, so much like how there are ladders installed here, there will actually be some more substantive objects in cover to make this a more interesting space to stand and fight in. But wow. This feels huge. I've actually only been down here I think twice so far, and I was mainly paying attention to lighting issues and things like that. So filming this devlog is the first time that I've actually taken the time to just sort of stand here in the environment and be like, it's so big in here. So yeah, let's pop back up that ladder. This is going to actually be a fair bit of traversal back to the next area to show you, and so I'm going to cut that right here. So obviously one of the concerns with making a level this large, as I am still slowly working my way across these ladders, is that doing this much traversal and climbing every time you want to go somewhere is going to get tiresome. And so one of the big things that I am trying to do for this level and construct is having multiplicities of ways to get around. Not just the locomotion tools, but also ensuring that the level itself and its structure contains multiple ways to get around. I've mentioned before that there are going to be essentially fast travel slots in the level. There's going to be a transit station with various transit hubs to all of our primary cardinal directions. There we go. And so, in general, the annoying process of climbing back up here on the Inclinator is going to be more commonly something that you will do because you're trying to actually get to the Inclinator or a supply room off of it. But actually using it in unidirectionally going up for traversal is something you'll probably take the fast travel point that'll be over there on the west back over to the center. And that's something that I really want to integrate into this level, is having traversal options that make more sense going in one direction versus the other, so you're not just ping-ponging all the time along the same routes, but are actually taking different routes based upon where it is that you're trying to go. So I have all the rooms turned off because all the light mapping that I've been doing takes forever to iterate. You're probably hearing my little wrist straps slap against my controllers. How annoying. And so let's take a look at the third space that is ready. This took so much iteration to get working. This is the type of service hall that is paired with the center area here. Let's grab up here. This is for me fulfilling a level design / level art thing I've been wanting to do for ages in VR, which is create something along the lines of a spooky set of vents to move through. So obviously crouching in VR is terrible. No one wants to do it. An artificial crouch just feels weird because it's like you're 2 feet tall but you're standing in real life. And so design-wise, what I decided to do was just scale the vents up to be about 2.2 meters tall. So it doesn't yet have it doesn't quite sound right in here when you shoot your gun. I definitely want to try to create a new reverb preset for this so it is appropriately, ooh, that's pretty, tinny and reverberant and such. But yeah. Continuing that theme of trying to make various chunks of environment. I think is there a broken collider here? Yup, that is a collider from something. Shoot. Various sorts of luminance levels in the environment, so it's all not Monica, it's all bright, it's all gray, it's all what have you. And so just trying to add more visual interest and alternate routes and cool ways to get from place to place. There's another one of our connections back to the hall. As you can see, the sort of reflections are not perfect here. This is VR. This is old school forward rendering. This is not RTX on. All of the reflections that are being used to do this are static, and I'm having to be fairly efficient about my reflection probe usage in this. So there are reflection discontinuities at seam points on the sort of vent tiles. This is about as good as I can make this, and I would rather make it look interesting in this way than just not use cool looking static reflections. Oh, it's neat being able to look through the map like this. That really, standing here, let's see, where is, yep, okay, cool, that's the end of the ground. This gives you a real idea of the scale at play in this level. Being able to look at all these sections from this angle. That's so cool. Whew. So yeah. So there we are, crawling through our vents. There are several more hallway kits that this level will have, some of which are in progress, and a couple of which I'm saving to show you till launch day. There's a whole quadrant of this level that I have decided to keep super secret until it is time to actually release the level, because it's the weirdest one, and it will be way cooler if you all get to experience it for reals the first time. Then we're back out here. This has also really impressed upon me, by the way, that this level's going to need a whole bunch of signage and navigational hints and a lot of unique landmarks in it. One of the things I tried to actually do in the vent was having it so that a bunch of the sort of variant tiles, like the circular vent and the linear ones, were at intersections in a unique way, so you slowly build a mental map based upon the uniqueness of things like that. So this is a large enough hallway that I can, I'm thinking of actually having sets of statuary and sculpture going down this, both to act as static cover in the hallway, as well as just, as I said, create visual interest going down, more uniqueness with it. I'm probably actually going to bring in another artist to do some prop work for me, for making these hallways more varied and interesting while still keeping with the brutalist and imposing institutional theme of the level. Anyway, let's jump out of VR and I will talk about what else is going on and our plans for the next month or so. Yo! So, out of VR, what else is going on? Well, as I mentioned, I have just been trucking along with this level. It's been exhausting, periodically demoralizing in terms of how long it has taken to get certain things to work. The light baking process that I showed off a whole bunch last week is super time consuming. Even if you dial the settings down to renders fast, but still gives you an accurate idea of what it's going to look like, it still takes like 10 to 15 minutes for a reduced test scene to render. So it's like you tweak a bunch of values for a couple minutes and then hit render and your computer is just occupied during that time. And while I end up being able to do a bunch of 3D modeling at the same time, because for whatever reason, it doesn't seem to complain about that over much. As long as I don't load too complex of a scene to work on, it's suddenly it's 10 p.m. and you've spent most of the day clicking on a button and waiting for something to be done over and over and over again. So it took far longer than I was like, oh, vents are cubes. Vents should be fast. I should be able to get this tile set done in a day. Just knock the collision off, dunzos. And instead, it was because of the fact that it's made of metal, so it actually needs the static reflections. And I wanted to do it very high contrast. It has just been this pile of errors and difficulties and frustrations. But I'm happy with how it looks. And it will be wild once I get a little more sound modification in there for climbing through. But beyond that, I have some other hallway sets that are in production. I actually have another that is just about ready to have its collision belt, which is the biggest pain in the ass for a lot of these things. And then it's back to working on hold rooms. And along that lines, because I had mentioned I wanted to get to what, despite working on this level, I wanted to get a release out for the 4th of July. It means next weekend I'm going to probably push either to alpha or to main branch all of the various bug fixes and stuff that I've been working on the interim, a whole bunch of our replaced cartridges. I was going to show off, actually, we've got some gorgeous replaced Soviet cartridges, like 54 millimeter rimmed and 7.62 by 39, but a couple files were misnamed, so I need to get another copy of some of those files before. So I'll show them to you next week. Probably throw a little gun in there because it's been a while, and if I go too full long without implementing another gun in H3, I begin to get itchy. So I've got a beautiful piece or two done by Ole that I would love to get in there. So as well as our explosive 4th of July stuff that I'm still figuring out. So again, I thank you for your patience as I just truck along making what is easily the most complex and asset intensive level that I've ever made for H3. It has definitely ended up being, well, it's ended up being more work than I thought, in part because the scope has expanded a number of times. The original idea with this was to do something about the scale of hallways, but just with a nicer aesthetic. And then I got into it enough with the volume of work that I was taking, and I was like, it doesn't feel right to spend all this time and energy on something that isn't going to be substantively new as a gameplay experience compared to hallways in terms of the scope and scale and things like that. And so it has grown, but then when it grew, I had concerns about how homogenous it all felt, like too much of the level felt like too much of the rest of the level. And so I've thematically widened it a little bit visually while still keeping it in that brutalist concrete look. But obviously a bunch of these pieces of it, because they're now different from each other, require more unique design work, more time, more difficulty. So Anton's done a little bit of like, oh no, don't crash into the ground sort of thing. But it's still going well. And importantly, I have solved a number of other time consuming to explain, but importantly difficult, like micro problems I've had with the level in terms of reflection probe layout, light mapping scenes, and things like that. So even content that, if you're like, why are still hallways even turned on that we haven't seen before? It's because I'm still iterating on them. I'm still cleaning them up, looking for artifacts, looking for visual defects, and improving them. I actually have to rebuild a couple pieces of the first service hallway set because I didn't think about the fact that their transition piece between hold rooms and the kit needs to be where Sosigs are also spawned for holds, and I hadn't left any room there for them, and I can't spawn Sosigs and then have them take like a 6-meter ladder into combat. That'll just take too long. So I'm like, so I have to actually go in, edit just those pieces of the tile, very carefully change and update their collision, etc. So huge pain in the butt, because generally speaking, if you go back and change something on step 4, everything related to that mesh or that object, you have to redo step 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, etc. forward on. So I have to do that for a bit on the service hallways, but each time I run into one of these issues, it makes the later content better, and in a big way, like, how to put this, at the risk of being too self-effacing, y'all have played a whole bunch of my levels. You know that there's a lot of suboptimal things to them, and a lot of that is because of the fact that in the earlier phases of the game, where I was focused on just shipping new stuff as fast as possible, new thing every week, almost everything that I did was very fire from the hip authored, and I would just sort of make it, slam it into the game, move on, which meant that if there were any sort of like structural problems, like some of the collision issues that are in the hallways tile set that are basically impossible to fix at this point because they were too early on in that process, I'm trying to not have that be. I don't want to put all this effort into a level, get a month down the road, 3 months down the road, and have a bunch of people be like, there's this thing about the way all the walls that are built that's kind of bad. So I'm trying to actually iterate on my designs, make sure that things are way more considered because of the volume of work going in on this from me and from several other artists at this point. And I want it to all just be worth it, because this will be this is the big mode for this year in a big way in H3, and this tile set is going to get a bunch of use in the game, and I think this investment will pay off, is what I'm saying. So anywho, I hope you all have yourselves a wonderful weekend, and I will see you all next week with a build. Peace.